Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, a show where we dive deep into the world of financial freedom for dentists and medical professionals. I'm your host, Darren Flesher, a dentist with a passion for uncovering the strategies that lead to a prosperous life beyond the office. Every episode will explore the avenues of alternative investing, tax mitigation, and secrets to build wealth that the textbooks don't teach you. Whether you're looking to enhance your financial literacy, discover new investment opportunities, or simply find a better way to manage your money, this is the place where your financial health is the core of our conversations. Welcome to Wealth Beyond the White Coat, where your journey to financial clarity and freedom begins. Okay, welcome back. In the last episode, we heard Annette Woods share her inspiring career shift and how she leverages her deep understanding of dentistry to offer specialized bookkeeping services. In part 2, we'll continue our conversation, focusing on the actionable steps dentists can take to improve their financial health and avoid common pitfalls. So let's dive in. Yeah, that's awesome. You touched on some things I definitely want to make sure we covered here. You talked about proactive planning. You talked about being ahead of it and not worrying about it retrospectively. And honestly, what we're doing here is free education. We want to just give dentists the knowledge. A different company that I run is, like we talked about, the investing stuff and how do you mitigate taxes? How do you maybe create income outside of your practice? And I have a friend who revealed to me relatively recently that he earned 7 figures last year, and now his CPA told him he owes several $100,000 in taxes. And obviously he wants to solve that problem in the future, but he's already paying the price on that for not thinking about it last year. And our first goal in that other group, Legacy Point, is to educate their current advisory team. We don't want anybody to have to change what they're doing. If the people that they already like and work with can maybe learn some of this stuff and maybe be on their side of things, that's what we want. Like we're not here to pull people away from what they're doing. But like you said, there's definitely good people out there that can do that if they don't have the right person on their team already. So I think that's really smart to be thinking ahead, planning ahead. I think that kind of retrospective look always ends up costing a lot of money.
Yes.
And people who are maybe trying to save a buck on their CPA don't realize the importance of planning versus simply preparing and filing. There's so much value that's worth paying for in my mind. So I'm glad you agree with that.
Definitely. Yes. And I've seen it in place. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I know part of what you said you do is compliance. So how do you help your clients stay compliant? That's a tongue twister. How do you help your clients stay compliant as far as regulations, taxes, whatever you're helping them with? Tell us a little bit about that part of your service.
We want to make sure that if they were ever, God forbid, had an audit, that things are in order, things are where they're supposed to be. There's so many things dentists don't realize. There's a lot that do, but we see a lot of personal mixed in. And we try to explain to them about the corporate veil. And if you ever went to court for some reason and they see that you're bringing personal into your business, that can open you up to a whole nother can of worms, and your personal stuff could be exposed to the lawsuit. Another thing is having documentation. You can tell me that this is for promotional, this expense, but where's the documentation? This could be your shopping trip to Macy's. The IRS doesn't know that. And what I've learned from the IRS is a credit card statement is not a receipt. So we have systems set up where you can take a picture of that receipt and send it right to us, and we can have it attached to the transaction. So when things are like that, in order like that, you are being compliant, and we want to make sure that your income is reflected properly, your expenses, that your payroll is recorded properly. That's another big one that is so important. So all those things we're going to help you with.
Yeah, that's interesting. You brought up a couple points there that I hadn't really thought about. The first thing with the receipts, like there's really no excuse for that anymore. We talked about cloud and accessibility and everything being digital, like snapping a picture of a receipt, sending an email, or using your app, your portal. That sounds awesome. So I'm glad you have something like that that makes it really easy for people. And then on the expense thing, running things through the practice, that's the benefit of being an owner is you can do some of that where you ride the line, and maybe some things that are personal can be justified as business. But it's interesting that you can see that go too far and potentially make unnecessary exposure in their personal life. I'd never heard that before. Have you seen cases where that's really come to fruition, or is that just something could happen? Hey, I just want to interrupt real quick and say thanks for listening to the podcast. If you didn't know, we have an associated Facebook group also called Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Over there, you can ask your questions, get feedback from group members, and have a close community of medical professionals who are likely interested in the same things as you. Whether it's alternative investing, tax mitigation, ways to keep more of your money, or even protect your assets, we're going to discuss those things in the group. Additionally, we have a private investors club called Legacy Point. As a member, you'll get exclusive discounts to preferred vendors, and you'll get access to private investments that you'll find nowhere else. Whether it's hotels, apartments, oil and gas, equipment rental, you name it, we'll be discussing those details and offering those investments to members only inside Legacy Point Group. If you want to learn more about that, please contact me or simply email info, I-N-F-O, at legacypointgroup.com or go to the website legacypointgroup.com. And Wealth Beyond the White Coat podcast listeners get an exclusive discount if you use the code WealthBeyond. That's all caps, all together, WealthBeyond at checkout. I'd love to have you in the group, and I'd love to see you making more passive income as you move towards financial freedom, whether it's freedom to retire early, spend more time with your family, go on more vacations, or just do more of what you love while you're in the operatory. I'd love to see you doing that as part of Legacy Point. So here's to improving your financial health.
I just know from being in the bookkeeping world, I haven't seen it with any of my clients, thank goodness, but there's some great IRS podcasts that I actually have, and a former auditor that talks about what the IRS looks for and what happens. And you would actually be surprised and shocked. And I share some of those things with my clients too. So yeah, it is a real thing that can happen.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. I'm glad you gave us that little tip there because I don't want people to go overboard on thinking how much can I run through the practice and get my 30% deduction because I get to write it off.
Yes.
Be a little bit smart about it. Don't go crazy.
And there's another compliance thing that a lot of doctors don't think about is do not have your patient names in your books. It's not HIPAA compliant. So we have ways to get around that when you're giving refunds. We don't have the patient names in there. So that's another way we help.
Okay. Yeah, very good. Let's take another pivot here. Let's talk about something a little different, practice growth. Like a lot of our dentists are already big practices or maybe aspiring to be big practices or multi-practice locations. Are there any things that they should be looking out for when they're trying to grow that might be like a financial red flag that they're growing too quickly? Is there anything that would show up in the books that would maybe be a little bit off as far as trying to manage their growth without sacrificing financial stability? Is there stuff that would jump off the page for you?
Sometimes I see dentists that have what we call shiny object syndrome,
Mhm.
and they like to overdo it with the equipment, and they can have so many loan payments that their cash flow just isn't doing well. So yeah, you can have big ideas of growing fast and having too much, but I think it's better if you drill down on what your goals are and work towards them and actually create a forecast of what you need to do everywhere. What does our average patient value need to be? What does our cash conversion need to be to hit these targets? And you need to be looking at them every month to see where you're not meeting those targets before you get into trouble. And then if you do these things, you could really see a healthy growth and reach where you want to be.
So on that note, with your service and your kind of holistic view of what they're trying to do, you seem like you're much more than a bookkeeper, although that's what you formally, that's the name of your business, but it seems like you do a lot more than that.
We do a little bit of advisory, yes.
Yeah. So how do you help practices plan for those large investments? Do you have conversations come to you? Do you go to them? Like, how does that usually come up?
We're meeting every month. So we're not just talking about the books, but we're talking about where they want to go. And should we, like, I'll have a dentist that might be building a new building and they start taking the money out of the practice to do that. And sometimes it needs to be a separate LLC or whatever. Let's talk to your CPA. When is the time that the practice should be paying rent to your new building? How do we get this out of the books? How do we record this showing? Just different things like that that will go over to help them with their growth.
Well, tell me a little bit about, it sounds like you really take people's hand in a good way. Like you walk them through your process. You try to really have them understand with you instead of just
Right.
receive things from you. Tell us a little bit about how you educate your clients, how you maybe bring them on board, maybe teach them some concepts or terms. Are there any terms and concepts you think every dentist should understand that maybe they're just flying blind right now?
Probably the biggest problem I have is them not understanding the financial jargon that a lot of CPAs like to throw around, and we try to make it simple for them in dental terms. But it is so important. We talk about them understanding the basics of their accounting software. We go over the reports every month, and I'll explain what a balance sheet is so that they understand the assets, the liabilities, and the equity, and how it relates to their practice. Again, how we explained earlier, what is a statement of cash flows? What is it showing? I also talked to them about getting to know their practice management software, because we have actually found fraud in different practices. And the common denominator is the staff thought the doctor didn't know anything about the practice management software.
Hmm.
So there's certain reports they should be looking at every day, not just trusting that everything's going in the right place. And we show them what we do with the deposit reports and compare to them what is coming into the bank, and if everything's there that should be. Them understanding what the AR is. We had one doctor, he was paying a bonus to his front desk for collections increasing. Most bookkeepers wouldn't have been looking at the AR reports. We were looking at them. We were seeing a high number of deletions. And what they were doing is they were taking old accounts, acting like they got a payment, and then the next month deleting it. So they were inflating their bonus. And if we hadn't been looking at that, he would have just been paying those bonuses without. Here's the report they gave me. And if anyone can create a certain report, you need to know how to go in there yourself and get what you need. And we also have great resources if we think maybe something's going on and we need an expert to look.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. On the report side of things, you don't have to give away all your secret sauce, but are there any like big three or big five that you could give as far as obvious reports that people should be looking at regularly, daily, weekly, monthly, that you could give a little tip to people?
You need to be looking at the deposit reports. You need to be looking at the services, who they're coded to, what happened in your practice. The best thing is at the end of the day, just look and see what happened while it's fresh in your mind. But yeah, the AR is a very good one to be looking at to see if at least 90% is being collected of what you produced. Those are probably my main things I think you should be looking at.
Wonderful. Can you maybe talk us through, maybe you had a client that really didn't get it, and once you explained to them the concept and they finally grasp it, that it made a big difference in how they operated their practice. Can you maybe walk us through an example or give us a little anecdote of somebody who really took a lot of TLC, but once it clicked, they really feel like they took a step up in what they were doing?
If you go to my website and go to my recommendations page, you'll see that mostly that's what they will say is how they didn't understand what was going on in their practice. And the fun part for me is when we do our first meeting after we get their books cleaned up and show them what's going on, and to see the excitement on their face. Oh, that makes sense now. Now I understand. We see that a lot. Probably only one time I had a dentist that thought he was just doing wonderful because the practice management just showed everything being peaches and cream. And then we got to the accounting software, and I just saw his face drain more and more as we went through everything. Like,
Mm.
oh, so it's great now because he's one of my best clients, and he gets excited every month to see what's going on in his practice. And if because I've had dentists say to me, I can feel like I'm doing good, but it's just a feeling. But seeing the facts really changed how I make decisions. So that's
That-
probably mostly what I see.
That's wonderful. Let's pivot to the positive here. What are some of the common traits of successful practices that you've worked with? Are there any commonalities between them as far as either what they're doing from a bookkeeping perspective, from a record keeping perspective, operations? Are there any things that stand out to you as far as what financially successful practices look like?
Are you overwhelmed by dental school loans or practice related debt? Credit cards, mortgage payments, car loans, and more? Imagine a future where your financial burdens are not just reduced, but on track to be eliminated entirely. That's what our soon to be launched solution offers, a powerful, tailored version of the Shred method designed specifically for dentists. This isn't your typical debt reduction strategy. It's a groundbreaking approach to managing cash flow, cutting down interest payments, and accelerating your journey to financial freedom. With this new method, you'll discover how to optimize your income and debt management like never before, keeping more of your hard-earned money where it belongs. Want to be among the first to take advantage of this innovative debt solution? Contact me at darren@legacypointgroup.com. That's DEREN at legacypointgroup.com to join the waiting list and stay in the loop. Your journey to a debt-free life is just around the corner. Stay tuned.
The ones that are doing well with me are the ones that are getting the information, they take it seriously, and that show up every month to go over things. Those are the ones that grow, and those are the ones that seek out those experts like we talk about, the dental specific experts that are going to help them. That's the main thing. There's really not a huge secret sauce. It's just knowing your numbers and taking it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. You got to just dig in, be consistent, show up, and just stick with the process. I agree. If you put your head in the sand and think I'm just doing the dentistry and the money will show up, there's definitely a lot of things that can go wrong along the way.
Yes.
So I agree
Yes.
with you there.
Definitely.
Touched on something earlier, and maybe not everybody's motivated in this way, but some people might want to sell eventually. So some people might be thinking, what do I need to do? What should I be preparing for? Is there anything different from a bookkeeping perspective or numbers or operations? What should I be doing in preparation for that? Do you have any advice from your point of view on what dentists should be doing to prepare for a sale?
The biggest thing, again, from my perspective, is having your books in order and organized in a way that makes sense. I have seen so many doctors that their balance sheet is just a mess. They're not paying attention. They're trying to do it themselves. You want to have the balance sheet where it looks good because that's the first thing banks look at. And we call it the liquidity. So a bank wants to see if something was to happen to the doctor, is this practice going to be able to pay off its debts? That's the number one thing they look in the health of the business. Because again, when we talk about the number on the income statement or profit and loss, that can be misleading. Just because it says you made a profit, there's so many other things that can affect it. So we'll create, even with your profit and loss, we'll put it in categories or sections. We might have a section that's occupancy costs. So it'll show who's ever looking at that practice to buy it, what's it going to cost to be in the building? And then we'll separate what do they spend on office supplies. We don't just list all the expenses in alphabetical order. I will see on a lot of books that I clean up. You have to have it in a system that makes sense and makes it look attractive to a buyer.
Wonderful. And sometimes practice sale means retirement. Sometimes those things are synonymous, but sometimes a practice sale is I just don't want to be an owner, or I'm moving states, or I'm pivoting to do something different like you did. So let's talk specifically about retirement. Is there anything different from what you just said? If a dentist is preparing to retire, that would differ from a sale. Are they pretty much the same thing, or is there other aspects to bookkeeping and dental practice management and financials that a dentist might add on to the practice sale aspect?
It depends what retirement looks like to them. Sometimes retirement is maybe not doing clinical and just running the practices, doing the administrative part. Some of it might be walking away and getting the best price you can, selling to another dentist. It just depends what it looks like. But a lot of it, the foundation is the same, having clear financials that make sense in order to retire and get that price that you're looking for. If your books are a mess and you have all sorts of personal expenses in there that make your expenses elevated, it's not going to be very attractive. So we want to have that separated. We even separate the doctor's salary in other expenses in the profit and loss because that's something that's discretionary. So you just need to have it organized correctly for what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate you sharing that. I want to wrap up here with a little bit of an FAQ specific about you and your business, bookkeeping aesthetics. I know people are probably going to reach out to me or you, and this isn't just an easy way to disseminate some of the common questions. So tell us a little bit about where do you practice as far as like states? Are there any that you limit your practice to? Are there any that you don't work with? Any kind of things that you'd like to share from an FAQ perspective?
We do have practices from California to New York, all across the South and the North. Probably the only states I don't have clients in are Hawaii and Alaska, just because of the time difference. But with California, it works out great. They can get in early with me because I've already been up for a few hours, and vice versa the other way. Anywhere, definitely. And we have CPAs that we work with all across the United States to help them out, and different dental specific professionals all across. Like, you're on the other side of the country from me. Yeah.
We might have said this offline before we hit record. So just to make sure it's here in our recording here, you're located in Florida, correct?
Yes, the Jacksonville area.
Wonderful. Are there any other kind of limitations or things you'd want to share as far as types of practice you work with? Do you work with specialty? Do you work with multi-location? Is there any sort of limiting factor on who you'd want to work with?
We really don't work with DSOs just because they have their own bookkeeping team and financial advisors. But any single practitioner, independent owner, we love to work with. You can have associates, or if you have a couple practices, we do that too. Yeah, we're open to it all.
Wonderful. Share with our audience here how to get in touch with you or how to look you up. Would you prefer them to go to your website? Do you want them to email you? Just share your best contact info for everybody.
Well, what's really nice is if they make an appointment, just it's no charge, just to get to know if I'm the right fit and get to know the person on the call. And if we think it might be a right fit and I can help with what they're looking for, or if I can't, maybe I can refer them to somebody. But if you go to consult.bookkeepingaesthetics.com, you can go to my calendar. But if you're not into doing that, we're at 904-422-6500. You can call us and just even ask us a few questions. If there's something you need help with your bookkeeping and it's something simple, we're glad to help. Or go to my website, bookkeepingaesthetics.com, look around and schedule an appointment.
Wonderful. I appreciate you offering all of that. And I think what you said in the middle of that, where they can call you up with a question, I think good karma goes a long way. Helping somebody out when they just need a question, I think that's a great service that you offer. I appreciate you offering that to the listeners here. Is there any last kind of parting thoughts? Anything you thought we should cover today? Anything you want to share with the audience about bookkeeping or financial health, or some story that maybe you want to save somebody some heartache? Anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure we get out there today?
Probably the biggest heartache that I've seen with dentists is not with internal controls. I'm very big into that, especially during this time after COVID when it's hard to find staff. I've seen dentists rush into hiring people without doing background checks. And I had this one dentist that he needed someone so badly in his front desk, and he hired someone on the spot. And I'm like, did you do a background check? No. Anyways, she ended up embezzling. And if he had just Googled that person, she was wanted in 3 other states. Be careful, do your due diligence, and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache.
I do want to ask you one final question because you brought it up in your story there. From a embezzlement perspective, I know a lot of dentists are concerned about it. Some maybe put their head in the sand and don't worry about it and hope it just works out. Are there any kind of checks and balances, processes that a dentist should implement? Is it checking the mail yourself and stamping all the insurance checks? What should they be doing? I know you can never prevent it 100%. If somebody's
No.
going to do it, they're going to do it. But are there any things that you can, low-hanging fruit that people should be doing to make sure that doesn't happen to them?
Yeah, what I see with small offices is they have one person doing all. They have someone going to the mail, getting the bills, getting the checks, recording the checks, going to the bank, depositing them, having an in-house bookkeeper. Number one, no. You should have that outside sourced, but you have to split up and delegate things so that people are checking other people's work. Also, not sharing passwords. So if someone's working on the computer, they need to be doing it under their password, not somebody else's. Just little things like that can go a long ways in having those checks and balances.
Agreed. Yeah, I make sure that no process is vertically integrated with one person. There's definitely at least two, if not three hands that
Yes,
touch a process all the way through. I think that's important. I agree.
definitely.
All right. I think we'll wrap up there. I really appreciate you coming on here today. Again, she gave you all her resources as far as where to go to contact her. But Annette, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with our listeners. It's very valuable and very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Wonderful. Okay, that wraps up our two-part series with Annette Woods, who has given us invaluable insights into how dentists can elevate their financial management. From understanding the importance of accurate bookkeeping to exploring strategies for proactive planning and growth, Annette has provided a roadmap for any dental practice looking to optimize its financial health. Remember, building a successful practice isn't just about the clinical work, it's about making informed financial decisions that support your long-term goals. So thanks for tuning in, and be sure to implement these tips in your own practice for a stronger financial future. Thanks for listening in to Wealth Beyond the White Coat. Your time and attention mean a lot to us. If you found value in today's episode, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform and share it with your colleagues and friends. Your feedback helps us grow and reach more professionals like you striving for financial freedom. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your financial health. Thank you for joining us on this journey to wealth beyond the white coat.